Good morning. I'm David Gard, the Executive Director of the Michigan Energy Efficiency Contractors Association, and I want to welcome you to this morning's training session. Recently, the Consumers Energy team gave a presentation to the Michigan Public Service Commission's EWR Collaborative on their all-electric new home and solar trade allies pilot programs. And I thought this information would be interesting to our members and our associates of MEECA. So Ross and Rob are here today to help bring this information to a wider audience within the industry. And just before I hand it over to them to get going, just a couple of reminders. One, you'll have a Q&A feature. If you have questions, please use that, and we will address questions after the presentation. And then also, this webinar is being recorded. So again, welcome to our training session this morning. And Ross, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, David. And thank you everyone for joining us here this morning. And we're happy to be here to give an overview of Consumers Energy's super efficient all-electric new home pilot. We have some exciting information based on our implementation of our all-electric pilot over the past few years, since starting in 2020 and through present, and some next steps and what we have planned for ahead. So our focus will be mainly around our phased approach and what's been done so far to date, and learnings mainly around how to build super efficient and all-electric homes. We do have some solar aspects that are associated with our phase one pilot. However, we hope to share future learnings around the solar trade ally piece and some of the solar aspects that we're working on here at a future date. So look forward to hopefully connecting with you all here in the future as well. So just to give a brief agenda of our presentation today, we'll start with some introductions and jump into our pilot purpose and objectives. Then getting into the bulk of our presentation, which includes an overview of our phase one pilot and phase two pilot. And then lastly, before Q&A, we'll end with some next steps, opportunities, and challenges that lie ahead in the future. So to start out with some brief introductions, my name is Ross Igo. I'm a manager for ICF. Been with ICF now for just over 6 years, helping support new homes programs across the Midwest. Primarily been in Ohio, Michigan, and more recently in Minnesota and Indiana. So have a wide knowledge of how building is happening, or the building practices that are occurring in those states, and happy to knowledge share with you all in Michigan. I am a former certified HERS rater, as I was an account manager for ICF, helping builders and raters with QA/QC and corrective actions across the home to help homes build more efficiently. And I have been working with the pilot program here since 2020, so going on about 4 years or so, or 3 years or so of supporting this effort here. I'll pass it on to my colleague Rob, who will also be presenting with me here today.
Hi, buddy. I'm Rob Morawski. I'm an account manager / deputy program manager in support of the new homes programs for both DTE and Consumers Energy in Michigan. I joined ICF in 2020. Prior to that, I ran my HERS rating business out of the Metro Detroit area, worked with both residential and multifamily builders. My experience was used to help with the preliminary modeling of the phase one pilot and provide guidance on Energy Star requirements to the builders and HVAC contractors working with the pilot. Also support QA/QC efforts with both the new homes program and the super efficient all electric homes program. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Rob. And just before jumping into the bulk of our presentation, just want to give some further background on ICF for those who are not aware of ICF and our role here with Consumers Energy in the pilot. ICF is a leading provider in professional services and technology-based solutions to governments, utilities, and companies. We have over 1,100 of our consultants serve energy clients, and we run over 150 energy programs on behalf of 50 utility clients across the country, including Canada as well. We are the implementation contractor for the Consumers Energy all-electric, super efficient all-electric pilot. We also support consumers as well as other Michigan-based utilities and help support and implement their energy efficiency programs across the state. In regards to new homes programs, we currently implement 26 utility-sponsored residential new homes programs since 2001. And that stretches from anywhere from Massachusetts down to Phoenix, Arizona, as well as several utilities across the Midwest and in the Mid-Atlantic. So have a wide variety of knowledge and learnings from building practices that are happening in different parts of the United States. And through those new homes programs, over the past 2 years, ICF has helped deliver over 70,000 homes to utility clients that are implementing new homes programs in just the past 2 years alone. So we do look at ourselves as some of these subject matter experts in the new home space, supporting utility programs that are providing incentives and rebates to builders for building efficient new home programs above code. So jumping into the pilot purpose and objectives. So this pilot specifically is a collaboration between Consumers Energy and the Natural Resources Defense Council, a nonprofit environmental group. And back in late 2019, given the shared vision of the collaborators and the way that energy is generated, distributed, and consumed is changing, it was determined amongst Consumers Energy, the NRDC, the MPSC, that a pilot exploring the future state of new homes is required. So there was a settlement, that agreement that went into place that essentially put in these purposes and objectives for Consumers Energy to implement, identify, and follow. Fundamentally, these pilots would have demand side measures and on-site generation included. It would include cold climate air source heat pumps in order to test the awareness and feasibility of heat pump technology in cold Midwestern states. And the third requirement is we need to keep scalability in mind. We're not just searching out to incentivize high-end custom homes to be net zero, but we're also looking to see traction in our affordable and income qualified housing stock, as well as moderate housing stock and production. So it was really trying to get a holistic picture of how all electric building can be done and the feasibility of it being able to be, or having it being able to be done in the state of Michigan. And with the settlement agreement, it did come with some evaluation objectives. These included energy bill impacts, customer comfort, builder barriers, cost effectiveness, and documenting these outcomes through case studies like this presentation here today. So over the course of the past 3.5 years, Consumers Energy has rolled out the pilot in 2 phases, with a 3rd phase that is currently in the planning stage. Phase 1, which ran from early 2020 to mid 2021, focused on 4 income qualified demonstration homes in the Kalamazoo area. The main objective of this pilot was to deploy a prescribed measure mix used to demonstrate the performance of super efficient all electric homes. These homes had installed cold climate air source heat pumps, added significant PV solar to help offset homeowners' energy usage, and allowed our team to really gain an understanding of the incremental costs builders face from going from, let's say, a dual fuel code built home all the way to a super efficient all electric home. Phase 2 came up next, which is currently being implemented and was formally launched in July of 2021. And using the learnings from Phase 1, Consumers Energy set out to explore the scalability and market acceptance of super efficient all-electric homes for both market rate and income qualified builders. And while we did not require a prescribed measure mix like we did in Phase 1, we did recommend a list of measures to be installed to help the builders meet some of the Phase 2 requirements. And we'll touch on that during our Phase 2 overview here in a few slides. These requirements did include items called out specifically in the settlement agreements that included the net zero ready or PV added on site, all electric home with a cold climate heat pump installed. However, one requirement we put in place for Phase 2 that was not identified in the settlement agreement included a home energy rating score of 40 or less. And this HERS score of 40 or less needed to be displayed or submitted to the program team during the pre-construction or early stages of construction to show that the home was designed to meet this HERS 40 requirement. And then upon final completion of the home, we required an updated HERS score of what was actually constructed to show that it still met that HERS 40 requirement. And we'll get into some of those details here as we talk through phase 2. Finally, while we are still implementing phase 2 and plan on working with those builders who have reserved projects here throughout the rest of this year and into early 2024, the team is currently working on designing a third phase of the pilot, which evolves from phase 1 and phase 2 learnings, and will test the market acceptance of nationally recognized programs from the EPA and DOE. And these include Energy Star Next Gen Homes and DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home program, and that would be version 2. We expect this third phase to be launched in I'd say Q4 or Q1 of 2023 or Q1 of 2024. And as we get ready to launch that, would be happy to come to this group again and share our continued learnings from the first 2 phases, but also some more established plans and designs for phase 3. So here's a rough timeline of the pilot from the settlement agreement all the way to what we hope will be the end of phase 3 near the end of 2025. So starting in March of 2020, we did have the order reserving the energy waste reduction settlement and kicking off the pilot in Q2 of 2020, and that closing out and starting the evaluation piece in Q2 of 2021. Next came the kickoff for the phase 2 all electric homes pilot, which was July 14th of 2021. And as we're continuing to work with builders on phase 2, we expect this to wrap up here, probably Q4 of 2023, Q1 of 2024, as we close out over 50 homes that have met program requirements and received pilot incentive dollars. And then next, as I noted, we're looking to launch phase 3 here between Q4 of 2023 and Q1 of 2024, and that'll be focused on the national certifications. And we hope to work through this pilot over about a 2-year period to enroll projects and provide incentives for those national certifications through Q4 of 2025. So that's an overview of the pilot purpose, timeline, and objectives. Now I'd like to dive into the specific phases itself, starting here with phase 1. And before jumping into our design and approach of phase 1, I would like to first call out the huge collaborative effort the phase 1 pilot was, and the tremendous partners and champions that we were able to team up with to make phase 1 as successful as possible. So it really starts with our community nonprofits who was helping provide financial support and really had a great idea before we even approached these partners with the opportunity to participate in our phase 1 program. And this is made up of the HBA of Western Michigan, KNHS, which is a building fiduciary and a nonprofit offering a variety of special loan products and financial education services to low and moderate income customers. And finally, the Local Initiatives Support Corporation, which is a community development and financial institutions. All 3 of these nonprofits make up the Kalamazoo Attainable Homes Partnership, which is a project that seeks to support low, moderate income housing across Kalamazoo and build over 100 attainable homes over a 10-year period. And this actually started in 2019 with the construction of 4 dual fuel homes. And as we were looking for partners to team up with and help us with the phase 1 pilot, these partners, as well as their builder partners and key local contractors that were designated champions of HBA Western Michigan, all thought it would work to try taking these 4 dual fuel homes that were built in 2019, redesigning those for additional or 4 homes that would be in their next round. That would include the requirements of our phase 1 pilot, and that were called out in the settlement. So we were able to identify 3 participating builders, Landmark Homes of Michigan, Osborne Construction Maintenance, and Mart's Home Builders, who helped construct these 4 homes, going from a dual fuel to all electric with a high efficiency building envelope and high efficiency mechanicals. However, it didn't just stop there. It also included their key local contractors and champions, which included Energy Diagnostics, the HERS rating company of record that helped with the energy modeling, Craft Mechanical, a Mitsubishi Diamond HVAC contractor, as well as Home Energy Solutions and Elite Fujitsu HVAC contractor. Another important piece of and market transformation observation of the phase 1 pilot was that although Energy Star certification was not a requirement, whether it was in the settlement or passed through from the pilot team, the Kalamazoo partners wanted to leverage the opportunity to achieve Energy Star certification, to tap into additional mortgage funding and strengthen the pipeline of qualified HVAC contractors and bring distinction to their community initiative. So diving into the design of our phase 1 pilots, and as I had mentioned, there were 4 dual fuel homes that were already constructed under the Kalamazoo Attainable Homes Partnership. So while teaming up with KEHP and the builders, we essentially took those homes which had existing footprints and plans and models, and we essentially took what was in the specs of those homes and look to upgrade those specs to be all electric and super efficient. And our design essentially was taking what was used in those original dual fuel homes, upgrading them, and then the pilot would help cover the incremental costs between the original build to the all electric build. So all in all, the pilot offered $16,000 of incentives per home for the incremental cost of electric measures and envelope upgrades. And then the pilot additionally offered a $24,000 incentive for rooftop solar PV. So listed here are the home features that we looked at in terms of making those incremental upgrades to the homes, and those included industry-leading cold climate heat pump by Mitsubishi or Fujitsu, an intelligently designed 8.5 kW rooftop solar PV system, heat pump water heater, Energy Star appliances, Energy Star triple pane windows, comprehensive air sealing and premium insulation, going to an R25 wall with 2 inches of spray foam in the cavities and 4 inches or 3.5 inches of blown cellulose, and then additionally an R60 ceiling. Alongside the air sealing insulation and mechanicals that's not listed here is with the comprehensive air sealing and premium insulation required proper ventilation strategies. So these homes also had an ERV installed for ventilation. Lastly, we did also include a 240 volt outlet for fast electric vehicle charging. And then just noting that these models were 3-bedroom, 1.5 baths, or 4-bedroom, 2 baths, and really shows these are your everyday homes that you'd see driving through Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids or Detroit. They're not your high-end custom homes. So we're really trying to prove that this can be done with different housing types, which is very important and an objective of the program. And here in a few slides, we'll actually have a walkthrough that you can see of the dual fuel home. So you just get an idea of the footprint and what we are working with the builders. But before jumping into that, I'd like to pass it off to Rob, who will help explain some of the solar goals of our phase 1 pilot.
Thanks, Ross. For the PV portion, ICF utilized subject matter experts who help with the project. They engage with solar PV installers and builders to correctly install and design the systems for each rooftop in order to drive homes to as close to net zero as possible on an annual basis. Through our work modeling homes during the design and construction phase, it was determined that roughly 8.5 kilowatt system would be needed. System was designed to produce about 85% of the expected on-site consumption. It is also important to note that one home was designed to a percentage due to orientation and shading. This is one area where we view the phase 1 pilot as market transformation pilot, as there's great need to facilitate and educate builders and customers on some of the technologies connected to net zero and require the highest capital investment while providing the greatest benefit. If you have any questions on the PVP Star pilot, feel free to connect after the presentation, as we'd be happy to talk you through how we incorporated this technology in the phase 1 pilot. If you go next slide, using our modeled results and compared to a dual fuel home baseline, there are significant savings. as projected, each home will realize about 75 MMBTU or 70% in energy savings. 58% reduction in annual energy costs with the PV system because of net metering rates. Before the PV system, this 1,440 square foot home is about 10% lower in operating costs, just based on the all electric and the super efficient aspects of the construction of the home. Home also has 91% reduction in CO2 emissions for the end use customer over a code minimum dual fuel home. Based on their final inspection by an independent rater, the homes as modeled are at a HERS 41 PV, before PV, 20 points down from a code minimum dual fuel home, which would come in around a HERS 62. In this case, with the PV system, the homes get down to a HERS 5. If the PV system was sized just a little bit larger, we would really meet that net zero mark. I don't know, Ross, if you wanted to play the video, but using the virtual walkthrough technology, we also have a quick video that takes you through the completed home. Note that this is one of the original dual fuel homes, but the footprint remains the same for the phase one homes. They utilized superior wall, R12 and F continuous insulation in the basement. Again, the house is just like any other house you'd see, and I think all of us thought that was important to show people that you can do this with technology that we have, and it is actually feasible in Michigan. But houses were all equipped for family, moving into them. So really turned out very well. We had propane windows installed in the phase one. Again, like Ross talked about, R25 in the walls with the 2-inch spray foam and 3.5 inches of blown cellulose, R60 in the attics. Just a really well-designed envelope, and they all tested very well on the air changes in hour 2. If we want to go to the next slide, Ross. Again, behind the walls, these are some of our QA efforts that we did on the phase one pilot, just kind of doing a HERS rating thing on our own and supporting the raters in their efforts. But you can see the ERV installed there. The cold climate heat pump was a ducted system. The heat pump water heater. You can see some of the PV installed on the rooftop of the one house that we're showing there, and we also see that there's some air sealing going on. But the builders really utilized efficient design in the construction of the houses so that they could stack plumbing and HVAC runs more easier for installation. In addition to the excitement from the community, it was also great to hear positive recognition and experiences from the home builders of the project who had no previous experience of building all electric homes. This kind of reception and testimonials from builders was monumental in knowing that these types of results are achievable and could be scalable to other home builders across Consumers Energy electric service territory. As a rater myself, the experience working with the builders in phase one was eye-opening. They were very receptive of any and all suggestions made to them from a number of people that don't build homes themselves. Myself, Ross, some of the other leaders of our program here, the builders were just on board with just about everything. And as you can see from Aaron's testimonial there, we provided a lot of support, and they were very willing to learn from what we had to offer. So it was a real great partnership and continues to this day. KAHP Partners and Builders, Consumers Energy, and ICF also had the opportunity to engage with the community on the project and what had been completed in phase one. During the parade of homes in 2021, the phase one homes had over 500 visitors who were also able to learn more about the all electric homes that participated in the phase one pilot. As market transformation pilot, there's a need to facilitate and educate so that builders and customers alike are exposed to the technologies connected to net zero. Therefore, ICF and Consumers Energy created several pieces of marketing material that could be used to educate builders, interested home buyers, and other stakeholders on the technologies and benefits of an all-electric home. This included a retrospective of our journey, a groundbreaking flyer, and an education slide deck that could be used by KNHS homeowners to answer questions on owning and maintaining all-electric home. That's it, back to you, Ross. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. So as I had mentioned earlier in the presentation, Consumers Energy, the NRDC, and ICF had goals put in place to evaluate the success of the pilot. And I believe this slide really shows the journey that the phase 1 pilot was and how we were able to achieve those goals through collaboration with key partners and champions that were committed to the same goals and purpose. To start out, the KHP project had a tremendous goal of providing affordable and attainable housing for their community. And this has been successful through establishing partnerships between nonprofits, HBA members to build the 4 dual fuel homes. Then came the challenge of transitioning to code-built dual fuel homes to all-electric super efficient housing with PV. As I said, this was a project that none of the stakeholders had taken part in yet. However, the collaborative effort and willingness to learn from one another to take the project from a dual fuel home to all-electric, Energy Star certified with PV, and decreasing the overall HERS score to 62 to 41 prior to PV being installed and 5 with PV. This roadmap also leads up to the evolution of our next story in the Consumers Energy Phase 2 all-electric new homes construction pilot, which includes stringent HERS rating requirements and another step closer to DOE Zero Energy Ready Home certification. And ultimately, with phase 3, we're hoping to continue this journey to helping them build 2 national certifications, whether that be EPA's Energy Star Next Gen or DOE Zero Energy Ready Home version 2 and our 2024 and 2025 plans. So with that being said, it's a good segue into our phase 2 pilots. And starting out, we started planning out phase 2 in late 2020 as a contingency plan to phase 1 due to macroeconomic impacts such as supply chain, labor shutdowns, increase in material cost. We knew that we needed to potentially extend this pilot offering to outside the Kalamazoo area, where we're uncertain in terms of the best design and approach. So some of the design considerations that came out of our planning and brainstorming included reducing builder hesitancy, whether that was helping educate them on the benefits and technologies of all-electric homes in cold climate air source heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, ERV systems, making sure that they're comfortable with those systems before diving in and building with those included in their designs. Incremental cost versus pilot cost effectiveness. We knew that we need to help the builders cover the incremental cost to make the upgrades of the home, but knew that we couldn't pay the incremental cost of, let's say, each invoice from a dual fuel home to an all-electric home. So we need to come up with some type of fixed incentive design that recoups those costs and allow builders to be able to make those upgrades without any hesitations. Another piece that was important to us in thinking about future integration of how do we integrate super efficient all-electric homes into, let's say, a standard new home construction program is alignment with that structure of the new home construction program. A lot of the builders that we work with in phase 2 have participated in Consumers Energy's new home construction program. So we wanted to make that experience very similar, so it reduces any confusion. So that was a very important piece. And then also aligning with new codes and federal certification programs, industry trends. We know that code updates are in the future. We know that we need to evolve the way we're building and also look at national certification programs that do have tax credits out there through the Inflation Reduction Act and 45L tax credits with Energy Stars version 3.2 starting in 2025. I know version 3.1 is already available for the $2,500 federal tax credit. And then DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home has the $5,000 tax credit tier, and being able to help builders stack those incentives between what is provided by the utility program and what is provided through those federal tax credits to help cover or exceed those incremental cost of upgrades. We also want to make sure that all electric homes can be ready for integration with other offerings, such as renewables or flexible load management. We know that the next generation of housing has tons of opportunities there, and making sure that we're helping builders realize those opportunities for the future. And then lastly, impact on customer bills was also largely considered. We want to make sure that builders and specifically builders as well as homeowners, and specifically homeowners, aren't dealing with the burden of increased energy costs from going from a dual fuel home to an all electric home, just given that where current fuel prices are, and knowing that they might have been used to paying 2 different utility bills and going to just one through the electric utility might have, there might be potential impacts there that we're not aware of, and we want to make sure that we get help offset those potential impacts. So with those design considerations in mind, we developed our recruitment strategy to reach different builders across Consumers Energy's electric service territory. This included leveraging our relationships with regional as well as the state's HBA, or Home Builders Association, to help spread the word of the program. We utilize their weekly or monthly newsletters to promote the program and the incentives to find potential leads across Consumers Energy service territory. Another huge piece is working and collaborating with HERS rating companies across the state. Builders truly rely on their HERS rating company as being a consultant to them and helping them navigate the changes of going from a dual fuel home to an all electric home. So we wanted to make sure that we were teaming up with those HERS rating companies and acting as a collaborative partner rather than just some separate entity. We truly knew that it was going to take, and through our phase 1 efforts, knew that it takes collaboration amongst all parties to deliver the results that we were looking for. And then lastly, and this kind of goes hand in hand with collaboration with rating companies, was providing that high degree of technical support, whether that was for the builder or HERS rating company, to help them understand our program requirements, what we were looking for, as well as, we have QA/QC that we do during a pre-drywall inspection and final inspections that the HERS raters are attending as well. And we can help identify corrective actions throughout the building envelope that can help the builders continue to seal up those homes, insulate correctly, and making sure that that home is as tight as possible for the future homeowners. In addition to our recruitment strategy, we also knew we had to simplify our design in comparison to phase 1. While phase 1 was very successful in meeting our specific objectives, we knew that simplified design would be beneficial for further success as we started to explore all electric homes at scale. In order to simplify the program design, we kept the goals and evaluation objectives outlined in the original settlement, such as the all electric home with cold climate air source heat pump, HERS 40 before solar PV or PV being installed on site, and then the added requirement that I noted of being HERS 40 or less before solar PV being installed. One difference between phase 1 and phase 2, and even phase 2 versus, let's say, a new home construction program, is we do require a preliminary energy model showing that the target home or the modeled home was designed to meet HERS 40, either before construction begins or early on in the construction process. But we also wanted to add bonuses in for builders that were going above and beyond, whether it was installing EV charging or EV ready, and reaching a HERS 35 or below before any PV being installed or designed on site. And so with that being said, I wanted to give an overview of our incentive structure and overall term, goals, and process. So as I noted, we launched formally on July 14th, 2021, and currently still implementing the program with the intention of really ramping down at the end of this year. Our goals and targets included a target participation of over 50 homes, and I'm happy to say we have 60 homes that are either have been completed or in our pipeline to be completed at the end of this year or beginning of 2024, depending on just the construction timeline. We are also hoping to have an equal mix of market rate and affordable housing. So before we dive into process, I just wanted to give an example of our incentive structure, or just break down our incentive structure. So we really have 2 different pathways, one for market rate building and one for income qualified building. So in order to meet our requirements, which is the all electric, having PV ready or PV added on site, and designed and constructed to meet an energy score, or HERS rating score of 40 or less, would provide market rate builders with $10,000 in their program or pilot incentive, and income qualified builders with 20,000. We then offered our bonuses at 2,500 for HERS 35 or less for market rate, and 5,000 for income qualified. And lastly, a $500 bonus for level 2 EV charging. So into the pilot process, builders must sign and submit a PA form, as well as we must get their designed home energy rating score submitted by the rating company to show that the preliminary model is meeting that HERS 40 threshold. The program team then reviews that preliminary model against the program requirements, and as long as it meets the program requirements, we then reserve those incentives based on whether it's going to market rate or income qualified pathway. From there, it's really hands off from the builder side of things, and that's really our intention. We work with the HERS rater to set up QAs for the pre-drywall inspection as well as the final inspection. Pre-drywall is really getting behind the walls and understanding those corrective actions, whether it's air sealing, insulation, aligned air barriers to make sure that home is fully sealed. On the final, we're looking at, your infiltration testing, your duct leakage testing, looking at attic insulation, things of that nature, and making sure that we're doing all we can to provide that level of support needed to make that home as efficient as possible. But once the home is completed, the final model is then submitted to the program. We review it in a very similar fashion to how we review the preliminary model. And as long as the home meets these requirements that we've set forth in the pilot, we then would process the home and provide the builder with their rebate here listed. One important thing to note is we wanted to mitigate the risk on the builder side. We know that HERS 40 is a very lofty target to reach, and we understand that things happen during construction. So let's say we received a preliminary HERS score of 39, and something happened along the ceiling of the home that we didn't catch, and the infiltration rate was slightly higher than expected, and the home comes in on a final at a HERS 43. Noted down here is our discounting here. So we provide builders with 75% of the overall reserve incentive if the HERS score comes between HERS 41 and HERS 45, and 50% if the HERS score becomes between HERS 46 and HERS 50. That way, builders are recouping the majority of the incremental cost by making these upgrades and not being left with an all or nothing situation if they didn't meet that HERS score on the final, but we're able to show that it was designed to meet HERS 40 before construction began. So I could pass off to Rob. As I noted, we did recommend some measures and list the measures which we have here, and Rob can cover that.
So in order to help builders get to HERS 40, the pilots team has worked in coordination with builders and raters to help model, educate, and train on where incremental improvements can be made at the building envelope and mechanical equipment in order to achieve HERS 40. Excuse me. Upon project registration, builders are recommended to put in the following measures found above. Air source heat pump or mini split heat pump selected from NEEP's cold climate air source heat pump product list. Heat pump water heaters with a UEF of 2+. Whole home ventilation strategy that include either an HRV or ERV. A building envelope with foundation walls R20 or above grade walls that were R30 or above, and ceiling or attic insulation with an R value of R60. We did propose infiltration rates in the 1.5 ACH 50 or less range. Energy Star certified windows with a U value of 0.2 or less, which often is including triple pane windows. Energy Star appliances that were tier 2, 100% LED lighting, and induction cooktops. While not a requirement, it was definitely a suggestion. Additionally, while partnering with Ecotrope and their automated design assistance tool in the standard new construction program, the pilot also took the opportunity to build in recommendations through the ADA to help raters with recommendations in the pilot if modeled homes were close but slightly above that HERS 40 requirement. Our phase 2 case study, right here, you'll see that we had a duplex built, which was a top and bottom unit, and what we call the ADU, the attached dwelling unit that was above this garage. We were concerned with these units because a lot of times these smaller units have a hard time reaching that HERS 40 requirement, but these three all did. Square footage on the first story duplex, including the basement, was 2,204 square feet. Second story unit was only 1,012, and the ADU above the garage was only 576 square feet. The first story unit earned a HERS 36, second story unit a HERS 39, and the ADU a HERS 40. First story duplex came in at 1.3 air changed an hour with the larger volume, including the basement. Second story duplex came in at 2.8 ACH 50. The builders actually modified the truss design and kept all the ductwork within the conditioned space, which was a huge part of that getting down below HERS 40. And the ADU was at 4 air changes an hour with the very low volume that was included in the house. But again, that ductwork was kept within the conditioned space by modifying the truss design so it could easily be placed under the insulation within the thermal boundaries. All included the cold climate air source heat pump water heaters, ERVs for ventilation, and the high performance envelope that we've touched on a number of times here. Some pictures from our QA efforts you'll see here. I think the first one in the top left is the attached dwelling unit. Again, flash and bat, so 2 inches of spray foam and then blown cellulose. You can see in the basement walls, they've actually insulated with an additional I don't know, was it R19, Ross, that they put in there?
R19, so it's 12.5 on the superior wall, so continuous on the exterior, and then R19 bats in the interior for a 31.5 total on the foundation.
Yeah, in that lower left corner, you can see the truss design and how they kept those ducts inside the conditioned space, so everything was actually insulated above the ductwork. And the frame floor of the ADU, the builders install R50, which includes spray foam and bat insulation. And again, they just did a really nice job with just about everything. And the builders were always open to suggestions and feedback from our QA visits that we performed on site. The mechanical side of things with the heat pump water heaters and the heat pumps that were installed in the homes and the ERV. Heat pumps came in at 12.2 HSPF or 21.5 SEER. Duct leakage on all the homes were from 0% to 2.5%, which met all code requirements, but also all Energy Star requirements. And then they all came in under 8% on the total leakage with, more than one return, which is another Energy Star requirement. The ERV ventilation strategy, helps the house breathe. It performs as the lungs of the house and tempers the air that's coming in with the outgoing exhaust air. And then they all installed the almost 3.5 UEF heat pump water heaters with electric cooking. Back to you, Ross.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, we're really, really happy with the duplex ADU project. It's probably the most unique of all the projects that went through the pilot so far. We look forward to a couple more interesting ones that are currently under construction and happy to share learnings from those. And if you do have any questions on those, feel free to reach out to us directly and we'd be happy to walk through that case study further. But looking at the project locations of phase 2, and as we had noted, one key objective of phase 2 was to test the market acceptance of super efficient all-electric homes. And as we enter year 3, so we've had 2 full years of pilot implementation from July 2021 to July 2023. Really believe that we've been able to achieve this goal so far with over 60 homes in our pipeline. And again, that's homes that have been completed or are currently under construction or permitted to start construction here in the next few weeks. And our pipeline has covered a large majority of Consumers Energy electric service territory. This includes 19 projects in Kalamazoo. That excludes the 4 homes that were in phase 1. So that's 19 projects specifically that KHP continues to build and show the commitment to building all electric homes after going through the pilot for several years now. We have a 12 project units in Ionia. That's soon to be permitted, I believe, and break ground. That's 3 4-unit townhomes that I think will be great for potential learnings in the pilot. We have 6 projects in Midland, 5 projects in Jackson, 2 additional projects in Portage, and then some other projects scattered across the state of Michigan. In 2022, we had 22 completed projects. 5 of those were market rate homes, primarily built by custom builders. And then 17 homes that came through the affordable or income qualified path. 2023, we'll be able to even out that spread a little bit further with 15 market rate homes in our pipeline and 16 income qualified homes expected to be completed in 2023 or early 2024. And as we wrap up our phase 2 overview, and it doesn't stop here, we still have, like I said, several homes that are expected to be completed, and we'll have many takeaways that we hope to share over the future months and years. But one of the first steps of our evaluation was getting builder motivations and homeowner experience. And while working with Consumers Energy's EM&B contractors, we've been able to get interviews and results from those interviews from builders. And some of the key takeaways from the builder side includes rebate amount. So the rebate amount was one of the biggest drivers for participation in the pilot, which comes as no surprise from us. And one thing that, as I noted, we need to continue to think of ways that we can continue to incentivize builders to cover their incremental costs while potentially reducing the incentives that we currently have. And that includes stacking the incentives that are provided through the Inflation Reduction Act and through the 45L tax credits alongside with what is provided through the pilot programs. Builders also know that they were motivated by learning about energy efficiency, and builders know that they took this opportunity to learn more about energy efficiency, energy efficient measures such as insulation and efficient technology out there. Builders are looking to gain a competitive advantage and recognize that all electric homes are the future and wanted to get experience in building what can be considered next gen housing stock. And then, as we had noted, the HERS rater is monumental in helping builders as a consultant to making these upgrades. And some builders at their HERS raters were very influential in working with their home builder clients and were used as a consultant for these upgrades. Now, on the homeowner side, energy bills. So before moving into the home, the majority of homeowners expected energy bills to be lower. That comes as no surprise. And I think out of 8 respondents, 50% of the homeowners reported that their energy bills are in line with their expectations. In regards to comfort, 75% of the homeowners have reported that their homes are somewhat to very comfortable in those cold winter months or hot summer months, which is great to see. So as we wrap up, we just have a couple slides here on next steps, challenges, and opportunities before jumping into Q&A. So next steps in regards to strictly the phase 2 pilot. So we're going to continue to work with the home builders and rating companies in the completion of phase 2 2023 projects and those projects that might complete in early 2024. With that, we're going to be out on site doing field QA, finding those corrective actions, continuing to educate those homeowners or home builders in the program and what they can do better to build more efficiently. We'll be completing application review and incentive payment. And with that being said, we do currently have enrollment open for projects that are set to begin construction this summer. And so if you do have any projects or know if you have any builders that have any projects that would fit well in this pilot and are expected to be completed, let's say within Q1 of 2024, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to set up a call, learn more about the project, and see how we can continue to support. And maybe there's an opportunity in phase 3 if it's not a good fit for phase 2. And then lastly, we'll be getting to jump into the evaluation piece as construction is complete on these homes, and that would include energy bill impacts, heat pump performance, and then continued interviews with builders and customers to understand customer comfort and builder barriers in the program. Challenges and opportunities and next steps beyond phase 2. So first would be the planning and launch of our phase 3 pilot with national certifications. We want to continue to identify scaling opportunities through production builders. Like I said, scalability is one of the key pieces that we're looking to learn and determine if it's right for either a national production builder or a small regional production builder to take the jump into all electric building. And we'd love to be a part of that. So if you are aware of any builders that are interested, please let us know. Stimulate market drivers through educational tactics. We want to increase customer demand of all electric homes. We want to continue to reduce builder hesitancy. And we want to identify potential other funding opportunities through tax credits through the Inflation Reduction Act and 45L tax credit. We would like to identify levers for program cost effectiveness and appropriate metrics. Identify impact on customer bills with current utility rates, and integrated utility investment models versus regulatory barriers. And this is one of the challenges that we've seen just with utility investment models, and some IOUs can be siloed in some sense. We want to figure how we can bridge those gaps between the different silos, let's say the renewables division and energy efficiency division. So we can help bridge those barriers. And lastly, in terms of implications for the future, we have our mindset on aligning with future national certification programs and codes. Like I said, we know 2021 IECC is potentially right around the corner. Energy Star version 3.2 and next gen, DOE's the Energy Ready Home version 2, Passive House. Those are all things that we're currently considering. And then also thinking ahead to how all electric homes can be ready for integration with other offerings. And I think I noted this in the previous slide, but how can we integrate these homes to be aligned with other utility incentive offerings with renewables or beneficial electrification, distributed energy resources, flexible load management, and behavioral opportunities. So those are all things we have our mind on, all things that we're looking and trying to design and plan for ahead in terms of phase 3 and beyond that. So again, this doesn't stop here. There's plenty of work ahead, and we look forward to sharing that with you in the future. So that's all I have. I'm happy to provide some Q&A. David, thank you again for the opportunity, allowing us to share these learnings here today.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I want to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. So for time's sake, I encourage people to enter those in the Q&A feature, but I do see one hand up. So I'm going to go ahead and see if Michelle would like to ask her question. In the meantime, people will obviously want to know how to get a hold of you. Is there a website with this information? Do you have email addresses for folks?
Yeah, they're
and while
actually...
you're doing that, let me see if I can, if we can bring Michelle in to ask her question.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Morning. Good. How about you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Great information. I was actually just wondering if a pilot could actually be done in the DTE territory.
So in DTE, there was a pilot that ran, I think, from 2020 through 2021 or early into 2022. I know the DTE team has integrated some of the learnings and incentives from that pilot into their standard new home construction offering. So if you would reach out to me with information, I'd be happy to send you a participation agreement, because I help the DTE team as well over there.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to provide that info. So let's connect offline, and I'd be happy to share that information.
Okay, because we are a nonprofit, and we recently had a home that was actually donated to us. That's a 2-family flat, but we also own property behind the Chandler Park Golf Course, which is like open space right now.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Right.
Feel free to reach out, because we'll connect you with the program manager there at DTE and see what we can do to support you with some incentives for all electric type technology.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And I want to try to get through as many questions as possible. In addition, do you guys have an email address that you could put up or just state?
Yeah, let me type in. So I did just drop in a link, and that might have been to host and panelists, so I might need to resend that. But yeah, my email address, I'm typing into the chat now.
And folks can always contact us here at MEECA if you want to send us an email directly, if you are having trouble finding Ross and Rob. So let me just run through as many of these questions as we can with the time remaining. Is there a forum for interested subcontractors to engage with the builders that participate in this program?
So there's not a forum we have, but I mean, we're happy to set up calls with subcontractors that are interested. Again, we use the HBAs and the HERS rating companies as kind of the word of mouth and way to spread knowledge about the program. But if there are subcontractors that know of builders who are working on these types of projects, we definitely encourage you to get in touch with us. I do have a link to our website that you can pass along to your builder clients, so they are aware of the incentive opportunities that are out there. And again, I think with phase 2 continuing to be implemented, and as we're ramping down and getting ready for phase 3, we'll definitely be promoting those offerings through HBA newsletters, through channels like MEECA, and other opportunities throughout the state of Michigan, just to get the word out there about the pilot. So I think there's plenty of opportunities. We don't have like a forum necessarily to share the learnings or anything on the pilot.
Okay. If you are here in the webinar, I've just put in Ross's email address and a link to this program in the chat. So make sure you check that out before you leave us today. Just a few minutes remaining. Let's see here. Does the program apply to new homes only? I have a major renovation that I'm currently starting that will meet all of the requirements as well.
So it is primarily for new homes. If you're in consumers energy territory and working on a major renovation project, I'd be happy to set up a call to learn about the project and see if we can fit it in somehow. Funny enough, we just launched our major renovations program for DTE. So if you're in DTE service territory, whether it's gas, electric, or combo, there is a designated program for major renovations that would you'd be able to go through on that end, and I'd be happy to chat with you there too, because I'm helping support that team. But let's definitely set up a call and learn more about the project and understand where you're building and what your timeline looks like. So I think there's definitely some channels and opportunities there for utility incentive programs.
Do you see some opportunity for multifamily as well?
So multifamily is a space we haven't been able to touch yet. I think there is some potential opportunities through Consumers Energy or DTE. However, that's not implemented by ICF. So if you would send contact information, we could probably pass that through our client at Consumers Energy and try to identify the right points of contacts to get you in touch with on the multifamily side. But yeah, for this program specifically, the qualifying structures really end with attached townhomes and not available for multifamily projects. Okay.
I just want to note we've got a couple minutes to the top of the hour when I think we're probably going to lose a lot of people who have to go to other meetings. Ross and or Rob, are you available for a few minutes to stick around and just field some of these other questions that will at least be captured in the recording for later?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help.
Okay.
Yep.
And others are welcome to hang around until we're done as well. So if you need to leave us at the top of the hour, thank you for joining us. And we're glad you could be here.
Thank you.
So let's keep rolling through the questions here. I'm a builder and have just recently completed 2 homes in Kalamazoo County that meet or exceed all of the requirements for the program. Can I retroactively apply for the rebate? Who do I need to contact about this?
Contact me immediately so we can get to participation agreements. I don't want to promise that we could get you in retroactively. We definitely have that process in place. So We're getting ahead of the project and reserving those incentives through our budget and funding. However, we can look to request for an exception from our client and see if that can be granted. If so, we might be able to provide some incentives there. But it definitely is dependent on a couple levels of approval there, and I can't give a yes or no answer at this time.
Okay. Someone asks where the recording will be located. So I just dropped in the MEECA website into the chat where you will be able to find it in the not too distant future. Let's see. A couple of other questions. For the home tour, this was asked before you went through the virtual tour and the slideshow, so that might have answered the question. But is there a link to that virtual tour that you took us through, or is that just?
There is a link. I have to check on if that link is still valid. It is embedded into the presentation, so I think that's the way it works in this slides. But we can definitely double check. I also know that our marketing team is working extensively with Consumers Energy to have a home tour of the actual all electric homes themselves. So we'll have that at some point in 2023 ready to share, which can really deep dive into technology itself. It's not going to be just the dual fuel home. But in the meantime, I can definitely take that as an action item to look in and see if we can get that tour over to whoever might have asked that question.
Okay. For the PV, did Consumers Energy give incentives, or was the federal tax credit what was used, or both? And if this is involving a nonprofit, who got the credit for the tax credits?
So for phase one, that incentive was provided by ICF to the solar contractor, or to the builder in phase one. In phase two, there are some projects that we're working on to provide incentives on the solar, but that is going more of a pass through to the solar contractor who is completing the work, and not to the customer. If you'd like more information, I can put you in touch with some of my colleagues who are helping on the solar side of things and seeing if there's anything that we could possibly qualify. I know we want to get ahead of those, but yeah, we'd be happy to discuss any solar opportunities as well.
Okay. For phase three, you talk about DOE programs are being considered. Is LEED AP homes being considered in phase three?
We haven't discussed LEED AP. Again, we wanted to really tie our incentives to the 45L tax credits because we're going to have to lower our incentives, as I said, just to become cost effective as a program. And so we want to make sure that builders have the opportunity to stack incentives from the program itself in addition to tax credits to help cover that incremental cost. Now, I'm not sure, I haven't dove into LEED too much, but if there are financial opportunities outside of the 45L tax credits that you're aware of, please let us know so we can evaluate those and see if it fits our program design. So don't have necessarily a direct answer for you, but we'd be happy to take a look.
All right, I got a couple more questions at least to get through. Before that, just in case people can't see the chat and are listening to this after the fact, I'm going to state Ross's email address, which is ross.igoe, I-G-O-E, @icf.com is where they can reach you. Was there an estimate of the cost of the Kalamazoo home that you covered in the case study being built to code versus this higher level, including with and without solar?
So in the phase two, we don't have any incremental cost because they didn't build a dual fuel product prior. I would assume, and Rob, let me know if my assumption's wrong here. I would assume it's probably close to the 16,000 that we saw in phase one, at least for the duplex itself. The ADU, obviously there'd be some increased costs there, and I know with the framing and the way that they worked in the HVAC to be within the envelope, definitely some increased cost and some problem solving that they had to go through. But Rob, do you have anything that you'd like to add onto that?
I would assume it was a little bit above the 16,000 that we provided for the incentives, but from what the builders told us, it was not too much higher than that incentive covered.
All right, and Rob, Rob's email address, I've just put into the chat. Let me state that as well. It's rob.murawski, MURAWSKI @ICF.com. I see at least one other question. Will this increment, so you talked about the incremental incentive earlier in one of your slides. Will this incremental incentive still be given on this next iteration? And how would it work on the latest iteration that comes next, that is black and white, requiring the DOE zero energy?
So we've been kicking around our incentive levels. I think what we're targeting is about $10,000 for the DOE Zero Energy Ready Home version 2. That's kind of what we've had in our minds, but that's not solidified yet or finalized. And then you would think that the 10,000 plus the 5,000 to the tax credit gets you to 15, which gets you, very close to that 16,000 that we saw was the incremental cost in phase 1. So we're getting very close. We've talked about Passive House having a higher incentive, but I know there's some special requirements about Passive House, and I think even having like a hired Passive House consultant, which we would need to cover some of the costs associated with hiring that consultant to help with that. So while incentives have been finalized, they will be less than what we provided in previous iterations of the pilot, just because we need to continue to figure out how we can reduce incentives to make the program cost effective, so we can potentially integrate it into a larger offering with the more of the standard new home construction programs.
All right, great. And with that, I think we are going to wrap up here a little bit at post time, but that just shows the interest in this topic. I want to thank both Ross and Rob, you both, for joining us today and for sticking around a little bit longer to field the questions that came in. And I want to thank everyone again for joining us. We will post this recording to the MEECA website in the not too distant future. And we wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.